Now, I wanted to talk for a minute about a couple of interesting statistics. Anytime you talk about COVID, it turns very quickly into a polemics. And I try to avoid that. You start getting a whole bunch of folks dogpiling in terms of comments and things like that. But there were two statistics that just knocked me over. I was writing an article for a blog for the I'm Aware lab group the other day, and I looked this up. So guess how many people have died from COVID? Just less than 2.5 million. And that's a couple of days old. It may be 2.5 million at this point. Now that's COVID. And so COVID started December, a year and a half ago. So we're going on 14, 15 months now. 2.5 million deaths. In the year 12-month period, cardiovascular disease in the year 2019, guess how many people it killed? 16.7 million. Now, we didn't shut down the world, we didn't shut down economies, and that sounds like I'm starting to get political about COVID. I'm not. I'm wanting to get political about cardiovascular disease. Why in the heck do we continue to ignore something that's killing 8 to 10 times as many people as COVID? Because we think it's, you know what? It's normal, right? It's normal to die in your 60s from a heart attack or stroke. Really? Come on. The vast majority of heart attack and stroke deaths are not normal. They occur due to prediabetes, usually sometimes full-blown diabetes, that has been ignored, that has not been diagnosed, because primary care docs of today don't know how to diagnose it, let alone manage it. This is not a criticism of docs. I've worked with docs. I've hired and managed large staffs of docs, 800 to 1,000 and more, most of my career. And docs are just like everybody else. Most of them are trying to do good, but it takes time. It takes decades for new information to get out into a very slow to change medical system. So here's a couple of other comments from the article. This was an article from Jack last year, 2020, and it was a summary of the cardiovascular deaths in the world in 2019. Prevalent cases of cardiovascular disease nearly doubled from 271 million in 1990 to 523 million in 2019. The number of cardiovascular deaths continued to increase from 12.1 million in 1990 to 18.6 million in 2019. So again, we're talking about 10 times the death rate for COVID. In 2019, cardiovascular disease was the underlying cause of 9.6 million deaths among men and 8.9 million deaths among women. This is around a third of all deaths globally. Over 6 million of these cardiovascular deaths occurred in people between the ages of 30 and 70. You don't need to be dying of a heart attack before age 70, which is what we all think of as normal. The highest number of cardiovascular deaths occurred in China, followed by India, Russia, the US, and Indonesia. Amid the current COVID-19 pandemic, there exists high rates of excess mortality. Much of this additional disease burden may be from cardiovascular disease. In other words, when you look at the 2.5 million people that have died from COVID, and you take out all of those people that really died from having a coronavirus infection, but having the precursors and the components of cardiovascular disease. They had prediabetes and or full-blown diabetes, and that inflammation caused the cytokine storm. When you take all that out, that may be the majority of these 2.5 million. So again, the real driver of death and disease here is much more unrecognized diabetes and prediabetes. And yet we're not giving it much attention. Why wait for a disease and hope for a cure? I used to be an ER doc. My name is Ford Brewer. I quit ER after a few years because it was just so frustrating. Most of the things bringing people into the ER are things that should have been prevented, including heart attack, stroke, number one cause of death, number one cause of permanent disability. People think that you're just going to have those and that they're not predictable. Both of those are wrong. They are predictable and you don't have to have them. Usually it's lifestyle. Lifestyle is more important than supplements and even prescription drugs and even stents and surgery. But the current times are tough. major financial impact with the lockdowns that most states have been going through. We've been working on a way to make this much more affordable with a subscription process, and that's exactly what we're announcing today. We've got two levels. One is the Silver membership, where you get access to our courses, a private webinar each month, and access to our supplement store and supplement recommendations and prescription. Or I would suggest even more so, the Gold membership. You can get a script for a Freestyle Libre and find out what your blood sugar metabolism's doing on a daily basis. And you can get a lab order for inflammation, OGTT, and insulin survey. You can also get a 30-minute one-on-one with me. So I'm looking forward to seeing you. Cost is no longer an excuse. So if you're interested, go to go.prevmedheartrisk.com/prevmed-subscription or call us at 859-721-1414, 859-721-1414, or email us at myhealth@prevmedheartrisk.com. Looking forward to seeing you. Thank you.